I have a ghost story that my dad told me about. He and my grandmother, Dad's mom, used to see this ghost all the time. I was born in Poland, in a very small town in the north. For 2 years after I was born, my parents and I lived with my dad's family in one of the upstairs rooms with a separate entrance. My dad says that whenever he came home after dark, he used to see this man in a suit standing on top of the stairs. My mom didn't know about it then, because she's very afraid of ghosts, so my dad never told her. But one day she found out about it, when her sister and her mom came to visit one winter evening, when it was already dark. They came up the stairs in the dark, and my grandma walked forward to turn the light switch on, and at the same time, my aunt saw the man in the suit standing on top of the stairs, and she saw my grandma walking right through him and turned the light on. My aunt freaked out. She was shaking and crying for hours. So that's how my mom found out. My dad said that one explanation for the presence of that ghost is that the house is very, very old. The area where I used to live used to belong to Prussia. Then it was taken over by Teutonic Order, and then Germany. After the Second Great World Conflict, Poland took over the land, and my grandparents, Dad's parents, moved there. They came from Lithuania, so no one is really sure how old the house is. But when they came here after the war, they found a body in the upstairs kitchen, and that is right next to the top of the stairs, where my dad and other members of my family used to see the man in the suit. I have gone up those stairs many times after I was older. My cousins used to live in that room, and I never saw anything. But I heard the exact same story from many family members of my family who experienced it. My name is John, and I have to tell you about the former house that I lived in Round Lake Beach, Illinois. In the basement of the house by the sump pump, there was always a very cold chill. Not only that, but a cold chill that was felt down your back until you went back upstairs. We also had a problem with sump pumps burning out. Light bulbs were burned out fast, and the circuit breaker for the washer and dryer would always pop. The thing in the basement never seemed to want anyone downstairs, and when the lights went out, it seemed to chase you upstairs. My dog would never go into the basement, and our cats always came back upstairs immediately. We lived there 13 years, and finally sold the house. And perhaps there is nothing to this, but it was all too coincidental with the cold fill in the corner by the sump, and all the electrical conditions. Well, thank you for listening, and I just finally had to tell my story. My name is Sandy. I'm a 55-year-old mother of 5 great children. I live in Toronto, Ontario. When I was 15 years old, me and my family moved to a house on Drufton Street. The house had 3 floors, 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor, 3 on the 2nd floor. The house was very big, and my parents kept it very clean, even with 5 children. Myself and my brothers had experienced many strange things in the home. Between the 7 years that I lived there, one day I was singing a song and taping it on a tape recorder. I was singing "My love is gone, my pride is gone, I care no more." No one in the house at the time except for myself. When I played the song back to hear myself singing, A man's voice followed mine in a deep, deep voice. I was very scared. When my parents came home, I played it for them. We just could not believe what we were hearing. That was just one of the many things that happened. Other things that happened was that there were 3 different times when we would have a visitor in the middle of the night. 1 man and 2 women. My mother was very strong-minded, and they always seemed to go to her room, and they would ask her if they could spend the night. She would always answer, "Let me go ask my son. He is on the 3rd floor." I remember this so clearly because I was so terrified. I went into shock, and I stared and I was shaking, and couldn't move to go help my mom. My mother would go to the 3rd floor to get my brother, and by the time he got downstairs, there wouldn't be anybody around. He would run out the door, look out to the street, but there was no one there. I couldn't believe what was going on in the house. We slept in the front bedroom on the 2nd floor. There are things that happened to me in that bedroom. I woke up one night with such a force to my stomach. It was like someone had taken their foot and kicked me so hard. I pushed my husband off the bed, thinking he had struck me. He thought I was crazy and asked me why I pushed him off the bed. I told him I thought he had kicked me, but he had been sleeping, so it wasn't him. Another night I woke up with my hands in my throat, choking myself. I was thinking, why would I be choking myself like that? Many other things have happened to me in this home. I wish I could tell you more, but my son doesn't want me to write. He's too tired. He wants to go to bed. We moved out after I had my first son. My mother and my father had a chance to buy the home for $50,000, but they refused to buy it because we believed it was haunted. We learned later the owner of the house also had experienced the same kind of things that we did. The house was sold to guess who? Nuns and a priest. I went back 2 years ago to look at the home. It still looked the same from the outside, and the backyard was just as nice as it was in the 70s. I wanted to knock on the door, but I didn't. I thought that maybe the nuns wouldn't let me go in and look around. I was a little afraid, because whatever was ever in that house was maybe after me. For what reason? I don't even know. I think that maybe it's bad that no one ever investigated for any ghosts in that home. Maybe if anybody reads this, they might go themselves. Well, my sister, my boyfriend, and myself have been reading many stories of different crybaby bridges, and happened to find one about 30 minutes from us, in Viola, Illinois. The story behind this one is that a school bus full of children went off the bride into a deep creek and then drowned. If you go to the bridge and put your car in neutral and shut off the engine, they will push you across the bridge to make sure you got across okay. So we decided to drive out there. We did as the instructions said, and it worked. But not only did they push us across the bridge, they were controlling the steering and pushed us up the hill and around a curve until we were about half a mile away from the bridge. Needless to say, we were convinced it worked. Along with the story came a warning not to get out of the car or roll down the windows. My sister figured that when they stopped pushing, it was safe to get out and see if she could see handprints. My boyfriend and I decided to stay in the car. She said that there were fingerprints, and we drove back to the main road. Once there, we all got out and looked at the handprints. About 30 miles back towards home, my boyfriend had to use the restroom, Since we were out in the middle of nowhere, we stopped on the side of the road, and he did his thing. About 5 minutes later, watermarks started appearing on the inside of the car windows, and my boyfriend said he felt very cold. I reached into the backseat to hold his hand, and his pants were soaking wet, like he stepped into a lake or a creek. At first we laughed and said he peed his pants, but his pants were way too wet, and it was ice cold with no odor. After we got into town, my boyfriend complained of a headache and a chest pain. I turned around to ask if he was okay, and he freaked out and started screaming that a dead man was in the car. He swore he saw the face of a dead man in mine. I have no idea how to explain this, and although I am not scared, I wonder if the real reason why you push across the bridge is because they do not want anyone there to begin with, and they say not to open your doors because the spirits will try to get out of there. I've had several things happen to me in the past that I could never quite explain. Being brought up in a Christian home, we were taught that there was no such thing as ghosts. Despite that, I've always been fascinated by ghost stories, horror movies, etc. It wasn't until I got a bit older, however, that anything noteworthy ever happened, and even when it did, I was still in ghost denial. My first experience with the paranormal occurred when I was 17 or 18. My best friend's mother had been hit by a car crossing a busy street. My friend had always told me that her mom was haunting the house, watching over her family, but I didn't believe. That is until one night, when I had spent the night there and met her for myself. I was sleeping on the couch in the living room, which is right next to the kitchen. The two rooms are connected by an archway, with no door in between. I couldn't tell you what time it was, but I'd been sleeping soundly and woke up to the sound of water running in the kitchen. It was completely dark, so I couldn't see anything. However, the water kept running for several minutes, and I heard no other noises. So I got up and turned on the lights and discovered that the kitchen was empty, but the water was running full blast. I walked in to shut it off, only to have the cabinet doors fly open and close by themselves. Okay, now we're a little bit freaked. I told my friend the next morning, and she just laughed and told me that Mom was welcoming you to the family. A few days later, she made her presence known again by causing a drawer to come flying out of a desk when we were less than 10 feet away from it. Fast forward about 3 years. My mother had just passed away after a lengthy illness. It was a hot sunny day in late August. My dad had gone to visit his sister in another state because he had to get away. Too many memories, he said. I was in the process of scrubbing down the walls and the windows in the living room. I had gone to the kitchen to dump the dirty scrub water down the kitchen sink. The living room door was open, and sunlight was flooding the house. I got a feeling that there was someone there, even though I didn't hear anything. I turned around, and in the hallway between the kitchen and the living room, remember it was a bright sunny day, was a shadow. I couldn't discern who or what it was. Male, female, whatever. But whatever it was hovering just outside the kitchen hallway, into the hallway that goes towards the bedrooms. I said, "Mom," at which point, all the hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and I proceeded to watch the thing float down the hallway and into my dad's bedroom. I was slightly freaked out, being home by myself and all, but I got over it. Until that night, I I was getting ready to go to bed, making sure everything was all locked up, when I looked out the kitchen window to notice that the garage door was up. I remembered closing it earlier when I'd gotten back from the store. So I hit the button on the garage door opener and watched the door close. I turned around for a split second to get a glass of water, looked out the window, and the garage door was open again. I got a flashlight and went out to make sure nothing was in the way that would make it go back up. Then it closed again. I finally go to bed, ignoring the whole door issue. Refused to think about it. After turning out the light, I noticed a funny looking glowing type thing in the corner of my room. Having had enough and still refusing to believe in ghosts, I said, okay, that's enough. Whoever you are, you're dead and you don't belong here anymore. Go away. And it did. I'm still fascinated with ghost stories and still wonder if I'm going to experience anything else. But at the same time, my 6-year-old son shares my love of scary movies, etc. And to keep him from having bad dreams, I tell him ghosts, monsters, and vampires, they're just stories. They don't exist. I'm sure he'll have his own experiences someday for himself. Then he can make up his own mind. My family and I moved into an apartment 2.5 years ago. I noticed little things at first. Noises coming from the back bedroom, but nobody else is in the house. Glimpses of someone walking past the door out of the corner of my eye. I remained open to the fact that I may have an occupant sharing the apartment. This would not be my first experiences with ghosts, so I was not immediately concerned by the thought of having an unexpected roommate. Most of the time our roommate is quiet. Car keys sometimes turn up in unexpected places, such as under the bed covers. A CD or two is missing, still wondering where he put those. Then things changed. I was sitting on our living room couch surfing the net on the laptop on July 4th. It was about 10 o'clock or so. My husband was in the bedroom reading, and I had the lights off so I could watch the fireworks. Light was coming from the computer, a little light from outside, and a little from the bedroom. I saw what I thought was my husband come into the room and stand about 6 feet in front of me and look out the window about 3 feet in front of him. I thought he had come in to watch the fireworks. I waited for him to say something, but he remained silent. After a couple of minutes, I said my husband's name out loud. He answered from the bedroom. I told him never mind. I'm talking to ghosts. He said okay. I continued watching my visitor for a few seconds when he just faded away. An hour later, I put my computer on its side, leaning against the stereo speaker, and headed to bed. I was laying in bed with the light on, thinking about reading a little more, when I heard my computer fall over. I thought the dog or cat may have knocked it over. However, the cat was above me on the windowsill, and I found the dog laying in the bedroom doorway. The cat also seemed to be interested in what was happening in the living room. I walked into the living room and checked on the computers. It was still leaning against the speaker, just on the opposite side, away from all the foot traffic. Since my husband and myself were the only ones home, I figured our visitor was nice enough to put the computer out of harm's way. It's been interesting having our roommate around. I wonder if we will see him more now. Anyway, I thought I would share my story. While I will have my share of scary, weird ghost stories, I thought I'd share a good one for a change. I've had only a few experiences with ghosts, but I personally was fascinated by them and I hope people take the time to read this. My family and I live in a 1-story 4-bedroom farmhouse where we operate our own farm. One summer, when my cousin and I were about 8 years old, we decided to have a water fight. There is this really heavy, not to mention thick glass door on the back side of our home, so I opened it and left the screen door closed so I could run in the house at any moment if she was about to soak me with water. I ran around to the other side of the home where she was waiting for me, so I quickly ran to the other side of the home where I, and only I, had just been, so I could sneak off into the home, because that was the safe zone. When I reached my destination, the screen door was wide open, and the heavy sliding glass door was shut. We were the only ones home, and she was right behind me the whole time. The door was too busy for anything like the wind to shut a sliding door. A few years down the road, my brother passed away in a drunk driving accident. I was 14 at this time. Shortly after his passing, I woke up at 3 a.m. surprised, because this was the time of his death, just a week before this. I went to the bathroom to get a glass of water, and on my way, I looked out of our picture window, inside our living room, and underneath the porch light, standing in plain view, was my brother. He just smiled at me, and then vanished. Before he died, he and his wife were about to get a divorce, and she played the innocent widow pretty well. I won't get into the disliking of her, because that is just not necessary. Anyway, they produced 2 beautiful children in the course of their marriage. She decided to move away with them to a bigger city, where we would barely be able to see them. She even rented out the house my brother built with his own 2 hands to this woman, who would always try to make him cheat on his wife. Obviously, my brother was not too excited about this. I guess that a few months after the move, a few weird things began to happen in the home. The woman's sister was staying with her in that house, and she had a little daughter. The little daughter would claim to see a man telling her she had to leave the home. When they showed her my brother's picture, she told him that that was the man she saw. Every time they would try to listen to the radio, the station would change by itself to either a rock station or a country station, the only kind of music he would listen to, and it would turn up louder by itself. If someone sat there and held the station, the stereo would completely shut off and could not be turned on. The final straw was when the woman's high school graduation picture fell off the wall. The nail was secure, but somehow it was lifted off the wall and fell to the floor, with everyone sitting in the living room around the picture. They moved out, and my nephews and their mother moved back home. We haven't heard from my brother since, maybe because everything he wanted to happen did. Welcome to true scary ghost stories that you probably haven't heard before. These are brand new, and this is the start of a new series. We are now uploading Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, guys. Please consider leaving a like, commenting, and sharing the video.